Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out of this world story from our space. I made my wife confess and found out she's a serial cheater. Honestly, never thought I'd be here in life. My wife has done the unthinkable. In 2014, a year after we started dating, I got a message thread on her phone with exchanged pictures. She told me her phone was hacked. I didn't really believe it, but I told myself to and moved on from it. We had our first child together in 2016 and got married in October of 2018. Second kid in a house in 2019. I thought life was good. Boring and monotonous, but good. This year I had a vasectomy. A few weeks after, my interests in the bedroom started changing. We explored some things and eventually she showed me a text conversation she was having with my best friend. It was obviously missing pieces, so I asked her to explain and she denied it. I pulled her text message history for the last 3 months and found thousands of messages between them. For 10 days we argued about this. Then eventually I told her I wanted to have her deleted messages recovered by a data recovery service. She eventually admitted she's been sexting with him for around 4 months, since just after I got the vasectomy. She told me they exchanged pictures and phone calls and that he convinced her to buy a wireless vibrator that he could use on her over the internet. Several days later, when she realized I was still going to get her cell phone messages recovered, she admitted she had sex with a former coworker of hers. She said she did it earlier this year. 3 days later, she tells me there's more. She tells me she didn't really have sex with that coworker this year. It was actually in 2019, and that she also met up with him once for a blowjob. She then told me she'd been having sex with her best friend and doesn't know how long it's been going on for. She has some memory problems from a medical condition. She said it definitely started before we were married, possibly before our first kid. She also told me about another guy who she brought into her home for the purpose of having sex with just 2 months ago, but didn't go through with it. And eventually, she told me about sexting with another one of my friends and finally admitted to the sexting back in 2014. The data recovery of her phone failed. I've looked at all her Facebook message history, Google location history, and other digital histories. I discovered one additional person she was sexting with, a female, that she forgot about. I'm so worried that there are more that she forgot about. I also discovered lots of upsetting timeline facts. The time she had sex with her coworker was while she was 36 weeks pregnant, on the morning of my 30th birthday party. One of the times with her best friend was about 10 days before our wedding, and she recorded it, and I unfortunately found it. That image will never leave my brain. And again, just 5 weeks after our wedding. The BJ meetup happened just 6 weeks after getting married. The Wi-Fi vibrator use with my friend was on my birthday this year, shortly followed by happy birthday texts from each of them. I have no idea what to do. In the absence of a decision, we've entered marriage counseling in an attempt to move past this. But it's so severe, I'm worried it's insurmountable. Before anyone says, just leave, it's so much more involved than that. If this was still 2014, I'd agree. But now there are kids, marital assets, and 8 years of memories. Thanks for reading my life story. Let's get some comments from the community. Loco6913 says, "You list reasons to stay, but in the end if you stay you will never again be free of this. She will look at her phone and you will wonder who she is sexting. There is no amount of deprogramming through therapy that will ever erase it. You will learn to accept coping mechanisms to deal with it." I read a post recently where a man was still suffering desperately 30 years after his wife cheated. You are setting yourself up for hell unless you pass away. It might just become a numb pain. I suggest you find an individual counselor. You need to find yourself to be the best for your kids. See a lawyer and follow their advice implicitly. Get tested for STDs. Separate finances. What you have must be under your control. Test the kids to make sure they are yours. This does not mean you stop being a father. You just make sure that you have the facts to make your sound decision. Read up on the 180 and Grey Rock method. But keep in mind that these processes are for you to safeguard your emotional health. Do not see it as punishment, but rather self-preservation. Take your ring off. Sleep in a different room or kick her out, but discuss this with a lawyer. Tell everybody that knows you that your wife has cheated. You've done nothing wrong. That is her shame to bear. She has to get the affair partners to fully disclose what happened. She has to get into individual therapy. She has to come up with a plan to regain her place in a marriage she discarded so easily. Your wife has to do most of the work. Your counseling is for yours and your kids' benefit, definitely not for her. Go for walks. or gym so you can increase your good chemicals like endorphins and such. The natural vitamin D from the sunlight also counters depression to a small margin. Get a friend or family member involved so that you can lean on another. Do not go at it alone. Your wife cannot be trusted to have your best interests at heart, which she proves by performing the most devastating act of betrayal. You have to see her as an imposter now, and that imposter wants to ruin your world. Do not back down when the begging starts. Spiritual Macaroon 35 wanted to add, plus, document and keep absolutely all evidence of her activities. You will most likely need this when it comes to separating and going for custody, etc. Sorry if you wrote it and I missed it, Dal Loco. Our next words of wisdom come from Remote Way 4813. Move past marriage therapy and go to an attorney. Separate your finances. Get all children DNA tested immediately. Your marriage is a lie and therefore a shame. There's nothing for you to do. So individual therapy for yourself. Go no contact with wife Greyrock, her only conversations about the kids. Control the narrative to expose to everyone, family, friends, and cheating partners, spouses, and work. Weighing Zero says, damn, your nickname makes it sadder. What's going on this sub with those best friends? These guys are too often involved. I could never imagine one of my guys doing this to me. On to the next story. Found out my husband has been cheating on me with his ex-wife and more. Husband, 31, and I, 40, met and we were married in the pandemic. We've been together a year and a half. Whirlwindy for sure, but it felt right. I've had a pretty tumultuous life of tragedy and death and felt I had finally found my peace. I have money, a modest but lovely home, and now a husband I adore, and 2 bright and kind stepkids. The whole dream. We spent all of our time together, never got bored of just hanging out. He made me coffee in the morning and massaged me every night. We made dinners of family and took our tiny dogs for walks with the kids. Our sex was perfect for me. I'm a simple gal. I don't like many people or things. I just want to chill with my favorite person. I would take a moment sometimes during the day and relish in how fortunate I was, and then hold my husband at night and feel like the luckiest woman in the world. The only real issue seemed to be his alcohol problem. It didn't seem like a big deal at first, but it became one. I had a volatile, horribly toxic alcoholic ex, so figured since my husband was always sweet to me, it really wasn't a huge deal. The worst he does is lay around being maudlin and listening to sad boy music. He had started to talk of suicide, which essed me up since my little brother shot himself. He talked about previous attempts and even showed me a suicide note. It felt more along the lines of cry for help than serious danger. I have mental health issues as well, and I felt we could work through this. My world began to unravel on a Thursday night about a month ago. I had prepaid for a casino night benefit, a rare date night for us. He was so wasted he couldn't get out of bed. I went without him. About an hour in, I get a text from his ex-wife. He had texted her asking if she'd take his son to school in the morning if he killed himself. Not even her son, but another woman's. I assured her he was just being dramatic, but I did immediately return home where he was passed out on the couch. I did something I've never done once. I looked at his phone. Very long story short, between this and a couple other information gathering forays, I was able to determine that my husband has been texting his ex-wife almost every day, multiple times a day, for our entire relationship. Often sexual, often yearning, often requesting news and even attempting to get her to meet him for sex. Among many others, he tried to get her to have sex with him 11 days before our wedding. They texted all day during our wedding and then all throughout our honeymoon, including sexual things from the hot tub in our honeymoon cabin. He texted her that he missed the hell out of her and begged for nudes on my 40th birthday. From the day we met until the day I saw those texts, and even after. Sometimes just things like sending her pics of everything we did and saw on a date, like the dinner I bought him or a pretty tree we noticed. Pics of my garden or houseplants he never touched, as if they were his to impress her. He texted her nudes he keeps of her from their marriage. He texted implied nudes of himself, including on Father's Day, after I'd made sure to get lovely gifts the boys could give to him and his father. I took the family to Yellowstone, and he texted that he wished it was her who was there and tried to get her to have sex the night we returned. He tried to get her to have sex in his apartment the day before I moved the family into my home. Call her pet names. Another thing to mention is I have a little bit of money, not a huge amount, but enough that I'm able to live off the interest of my investments, and I don't work unless I want to. I told him he didn't have to work if he didn't want to, so he essentially hasn't worked since shortly after we got together. I pay for 100% of everything, including household, vacations, gifts for him and the boys, dining out, everything. I paid off his credit card debt when we got together, but at some point, he started secretly racking up credit card debt behind my back, and I found out. I should have known then that our relationship was not built on honesty, but I continued to trust him. He's texted almost every single person he knows how much money I have and jokes about acquiring half my wealth. He even joked about killing me and splitting the money with his friend. He told his ex-wife things like, "I hope she's as rich as I think she is." When she Venmoed him money for something he said there was no need because Sugar Mom was going to pay for it. I once told him I'd take him anywhere in the world on vacation when a project I was working on wrapped up. He texted her, "Where would you go on vacation if money were no issue?" and sent her a screenshot of her text about it. This fits into a pattern I saw of him just using other women to make her jealous enough to come back. She started dating someone at one point, and he became furious and verbally abusive, demanding details. He assured her that I was okay with his obsession with her and that he would not be in a relationship with me if I wasn't. I could go on and on and on, as, again, this is almost every single day, multiple times a day. He admits to curating his Instagram to make himself look like a hot, cool father of the year to attract his ideal type, slightly edgy target moms, and uses this to creep on women. Texts reveal he also did this on his ex-wife. He called me her old ass. To an ex he tried to creep on. To another, I've got a rich AF girlfriend who was obsessed with me the way I am with ex-wife. Life rips. And implied he'd buy her a record with my money. As for the ex-wife, she rages in her responses but usually plays along with an LMAO, "Stop!" or a playful eye roll. According to his family and friends, she enjoys keeping him on the hook as a devoted pet and relishes the obsession he has with her. I have always felt suspicious of this woman and their relationship, but he told me he wanted me, not her, so I convinced myself I was insecure. My self-esteem got annihilated over the last year as I closed in on myself, convincing myself this nagging, vague, something is wrong feeling was my insecurity. In truth, I'm pretty okay with myself. I was just being massively gaslit. So, this bender landed him in detox with a .313 blood alcohol content. I spent 9 hours checking him in. When he left early, I picked him up and allowed him to come home. The last straw was when he told me his last contact with her was casino night. But I discovered he had texted her desperately 3 nights after that, mid-bender, begging her to help him because he has no one else. He was literally texting his brother and a friend casually at the same time. Enough. I told him he needs to move out. He begged me not to leave him, blamed it all on the alcohol. I told him I would consider reconciliation after 6 months of continuous sobriety, working a job, working a program, going to couples counseling, focusing on being a good dad, and showing me that he is willing to go the distance for our marriage. Meanwhile, I officially filed for divorce because regardless of the outcome, there's no need for us to be legally married. I also removed him as my beneficiary on everything. I'm not a perfect person, but I've been a great wife to him. He has everything a man could want: money, material things, vacations. I blow this man every day of his life. I adore him and love him and support him. I'm a good stepmom to his children. His friends and family like him and respect me. He didn't have to work. I even allowed him to have sexual relationships with other women and men I am cool with. I don't require conventional monogamy, but I explicitly, verbally require that we communicate about everything. No secrets, no lies. He apparently interpreted that to mean he can get away with anything as long as he doesn't get busted. I don't know who my husband really is. In these texts, I see him wear a different mask for every single person, telling each a nuanced version of the truth depending on what will appeal to them. I thought we had a special connection and a unique understanding, but I realize I'm just another person he's playing. I don't think we had anything real at all. Our relationship is built on nothing. I can't even truly say that I love my husband because I do not know him. Time for some reactions from the community. DSO Cat Love says, "Good for you for filing for divorce already. Get your power back. There shouldn't be any possibility of reconciliation after he called you an old ass, a sugar mama. There's a lot of contempt for those texts." Uncle Radets86 says, "He sounds like a sociopath. You giving him any chance is foolish. You were only together a year and a half. Cut him now before he has more time to do more damage. If he can recap this level of misery and fraud like this, then you need to cut him out. Those messages are your first glimpse at the real him, the one behind the mask. Don't be surprised if he pulls a fake suicide attempt to try and pull himself in the victim spot too. Look up cognitive conservatism. Betrayed spouses that go the reconciliation route, especially in a case like this, tend to hold to the initial memory of who they thought their wayward partners were, even in the face of cold-hearted, irrefutable facts. The man hasn't been honest or loyal to you from day one. Save yourself and find someone who will actually love you and appreciate you. Our last comment from Aromatic Rhubarb 221. Aside from the alcohol, my partner did so many of the same things. Even my houseplants. There's something so dang cringeworthy about the women complimenting him on our houseplants and his decor taste, when it was mine that he had nothing to do with. I'm glad you're in a financial situation to leave as you see fit. I wish I could say the same.